Welcome everybody, my name's Gary. I've been wanting to do a video about a mono workflow in Siril and with GIMP. So this is going to tackle some of that on the Siril side, but when we get to GIMP, we're not going to be just kind of touching up a finished image. I'm going to try to demonstrate a variant of the colorized SHO technique. The difference with colorized SHO versus doing a simple channel combination is that you can actually take your hydrogen and assign it to a desirable color so it doesn't get forced into the red channel or into the green channel. Same thing with sulfur, and then of course oxygen will end up in the blue channel. But when you do colorized SHO, there's no red, green, and blue channel. You're actually combining three color images, so it's kind of interesting and can be kind of vibrant. The image on your screen is an example of that. So I'm going to start with just three files. These are unregistered stacks from a hydrogen filter, an oxygen filter, and a sulfur filter. And they are not high integration. I think it was 15 hydrogen, 14 sulfur, and about 20 1/82nd oxygen. It was the most I could squeeze into the clear part of one night back in the fall when the rosette was in the sky. So it's what I have to work with on this particular image. So I'm just going to double click on this, which will bring up Siril, and with its home directory assigned to this directory since we opened it from here. So let's have a quick look at this image. Okay, there's the hydrogen. That's not bad signal. Oxygen, of course, is much weaker, and sulfur is just completely different. Now, bear in mind these images are not aligned with each other yet, so that will be our very first part of this project. So I'm going to have to create a sequence first of all. So I'm going to add all three of these into the conversion tab. We're just going to call this sequence ALIGN, the align sequence, uh, and definitely no debayering, and we are good to go. Okay, that is done. So if we open this up now, we've got our three images. They're still not aligned. Now, as far as calibration goes, the subs were calibrated in the calibration step of the stacking. Registration was done that way. Everything was done. All we have to do is register these three images to each other because when we start combining channels, they have to be matched. So we are going to go with global star alignment. Uh, Good to go. Okay, so now we should have three registered images. There's the oxygen and the sulfur, so they're still in alphabetical order. Now I'm going to flip back over to this. We can get rid of the align sequence completely. We can get rid of the conversion.txt file. We can get rid of the sequence file. We don't need it anymore since the images. So I'm just going to rename these. H underscore ALIGNED O underscore aligned. Sorry. Okay, so we've got our aligned images. So we can go back to GIMP. The sequences are completely out to lunch now. So we're going to go with our H aligned, open that up. Well, the first thing I want to do is a linear channel combination. The idea here is to get stars. We don't care about anything else at this point. So let's open up pixelmath, and I'm going to enter our three aligned images. So they are there, and the variable name is filled out with the filter already. That comes from the fits header. So I'm going to use a preset, really basic show pixelmath formula here. K times sulfur plus 1 minus K times hydrogen. And I'm going to go K equals 0.7. For the green channel, I'm going to go L times hydrogen plus 1 minus L times oxygen. And we will put in a comma because this is comma delimited. L equals 0.5. And for the blue channel, we'll just put in O. For oxygen, now this is not going to be pretty because these images are still linear and they haven't been normalized to each other, but all we're interested in getting from this is white stars. So let's see what happens. Syntax error. Okay, hit the wrong key there. Good enough. We'll close that. All we care about is the stars for this. Now I'm going to do a color calibration. We will not allow flipping. All the data is still in the fits header, so we don't need to fill anything out there. And there is our color calibrated image. Now again, we don't really care about the colors in the nebula here. That's not what we're doing. All we want is stars from this. So I'm going to close this, and the photometric color calibration has put some color into 329 stars. You know what, I'm going to run that one more time. The reason being that it does the background adjustment after it colors the stars, which of course could throw off the star colors. So let's just run it once more because the background won't change much. This time it got 345 stars. Okay, all we care about is stars here. So we want to preserve the color to the maximum extent possible. I'm going to put this into an arcsine preview mode, and we'll just give it a couple of arcsine stretches. And I'll maybe do that one more time. Now we'll put it in a linear mode, and we'll give it a generalized hyperbolic. I'm just going to click here in this. It doesn't really matter where the symmetry point is because all we're interested in is the very brightest pixels in this image. Let's just give this a quick stretch up. And I'm going to go right click in statistics. Okay, we're stretched medium high here, 12,000. Or we can go normalized. It's 20% mean, 15% median luminance. But that's a pretty good level for extracting a star layer from. So I'm just going to hit apply. Then we're going to export a file called stars. Now this is going to be used in GIMP. I'm going to do the star recomposition there. So we're going to do a TIFF, 16-bit, no compression. We don't really need all the plate solving information in there. Save. Now I'm going to go to star processing, star net star removal. We do not want it to pre-stretch, and I don't want a star mask. I'm going to make that myself in GIMP. So we're just going to run it and get our starless version. This just takes a few more seconds. There's a progress bar running across the bottom here. Okay, looks not too bad. In fact, that's an image a person could work with. There's enough seed color from all three channels there. But like I say, at this point, all we want is stars. Now, without touching anything, we're going to save this one as the starless version of TIFF. 16-bit again, save. Okay, that part is done. I would just like to show you real quick why I did that. Um, if we go in here and find those TIFF files, 4stars.tiff, let's just open it up with GIMP. And I'm going to open up as a layer the starless version. We're going to put the starless version into subtract mode, and what that leaves us with is the stars. So right click, new from visible, and that's fairly well color balanced already. I might have to do a bit of messing with that later to tone them down, but at this point we can delete that, and we can delete that. All we want from this is the stars. I might just hit it with a bit of saturation and see what happens. And then I'm going to go Control F a few times. Every time you do Control F, it repeats the prior filter that you ran. And now we're getting some pretty nicely colored stars involved here. So we will call this, and we'll do a reduction one way or another on these. Could be curves, could be value propagation. We'll just see how it looks when it's overlaid on the main image we come up with later. I'm also just going to save this up, and I'm going to save this off now, and we'll just call it Colorized SHO. And that's the first layer of the new SHO image. So we can close this and go back to Siril. Actually, I've got an extra instance of it running here. So I think the next thing we want to do is take our aligned channels. There's our hydrogen one. And do a star removal. Now, from my last video, you may recall that if you go to StarNet star removal here, there's this option to pre-stretch the linear image. There is an optimal stretch level for star removal, and the way Siril does that is it stretches it, it produces a 16-bit TIFF for StarNet, then it takes the result in and converts it back to a 32-bit fit file, and the TIFFs are all deleted. And then it applies an inverse stretch to take it back down to its starting point in its starless state. So I'm going to go pre-stretch, generate star mask, turn off, and then just hit execute. And what this will do is give us a starless image at near linear stretch levels. Then we can just go on and stretch that. We already took care of stars, so I'm not taking any stars out of this process whatsoever. Okay, there we are. So let's give this a generalized hyperbolic. I'm going to use a symmetry point sampled off this square, and we can give it a stretch. And let's add some stretch intensity. And I'm going to drop or increase the symmetry point because we've got a lot of clipped darks down here. And that is also improving this little hump here. Let me just back that off and see what kind of change happens. Let's just click apply there. We'll do a linear stretch. Take some of the dark out of it. Go back to generalized hyperbolic. Give it a bit of a lift. Okay, let me just see. We're up to 12.5 mean luminance in the image. So I'm just going to put that aside. I'm going to click apply here. I think we can take some out of the dark. And let's see if there's any more room. See, we're getting this big horizontal shelf on the histogram, which I guess makes sense because we got our dark pixels up here, and then suddenly a large part of the image becomes kind of medium toned. So let's take this a little further, but we'll add in some highlight protection. And then 12,600 mean luminance. Let's just go with that. I'll hit apply, close, and save. Now we can open our... Okay, so now we've got the oxygen sub ready. Let's go back to star processing. We will do the pre-stretch and turn off generate star mask. And we will let that, then we'll give that a stretch. I'm going to try just histogram stretching, I think, with these because the generalized hyperbolic puts in too much of a shelf in the histogram, which is not really desirable. Let's just have a quick look at that. Okay, we're going to have to do some noise reduction in GIMP. But anyways, we'll go ahead and give it a stretch. Log scale. Okay. Just brightening up the histogram a little bit, and we can bring in the whites a little bit. In log view, you're seeing the whole dynamic range right here, so we're nowhere near clipping anything. Let's hit apply on that. Bring down the darks just a bit more. I can actually come in from this end a little bit more. And let's see where we're at. Okay, I've overstretched that compared to the hydrogen. 13069. 12.5 as a mean. Let's just go with that. You know what? We're going to need some blue signal in the end result. So I'm going to just do this. Yeah, we'll live with it. Okay, and we'll save that as our oxygen. Finally, we'll open the sulfur aligned. We're going to do star net removal. This will be ready pretty quick. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Also quite noisy, but there's some nice signal there. So we'll give that one a histogram stretch as well. We're still in log view here. This is just to make it easier and faster than doing the generalized hyperbolic routine. $13,479. take it back down again. We're kind of going for that mid 12,000 level. Uh, Close enough. So they're all stretched kind of to a similar um, luminance value. Okay, at this point, I'm going to save this off as a TIFF because our next stops go into GIMP. And again, we don't need this stuff in the headers. That's the Astro TIFF stuff. I just delete it. So there's a TIFF. The O aligned, and I had believed we'd stretched that. Oh, sorry. Starless O aligned. There we go. Save that off as a TIFF. 16-bit. I'm doing 16-bit on this because my noise reduction software in GIMP requires 16-bit. And Starless H aligned. We'll save that off as a TIFF. So for now, we're done with Siril. We're going to go back over here and start opening some files as layers. Open as layer. There's our hydrogen layer. Open as layer. Our oxygen TIFF. And open as layer our sulfur TIFF. The stars can just stay down there for now. Now I'm going to take these one at a time and run a quick noise reduction. I use the original, whatever program you use for that. I have the original Nick collection from Google, and this define job does it. Oh, that's not going to work. Sorry, because I have not turned the image to color as yet. It's still a grayscale image. Mode. What is an RGB? Okay. So we're going to run that. Okay, it's sampled there and it sampled the darks, so that should give us a suitable noise reduction for both. In the interest of time, I'm just going to click OK. I'm actually going to delete Starless H aligned. Okay, now we're going to go to our Starless Oxygen. I forgot to turn it where it just overwrites the original. I'm just not going to make dozens of layers in this image right now. Okay, now in the auto select mode, it kind of got onto the edge of the cropping artifact there. And okay, so I'm just going to hit measure noise again. And I think I will accept that. So this time it'll just overwrite that layer. So this is now smoothed. And then finally this one. Okay. Okay. Okay, so one layer at a time. Now, if we assigned hydrogen to red, the final image would be hugely red, or if we assigned it to green, it would be hugely green. In Siril and pixelmath, you can do some blending. But Colorized SHO is a way to make three color images and combine them. And you can make each contributor into whatever you think is a desirable color. So the first thing I want to do though is make some masks. One of the key processes to this is masking this image. It's so that when we colorize it, only the luminous areas get the color. That way the background stays dark. In fact, one of the byproducts of this workflow is that the background will be virtually black at the end. You actually have to add some offset to it. But let's run with that. So I'm just going to give this a quick look-see in the curves. And throughout all of these, I'm using a logarithmic view. Um, I'm looking over here to see the effect that it's having. I'm just going to hit reset on this. Let's take the whites up. I'd like to flatten this hump a little bit right here. And it is not flattening no matter what I do. Okay. Well, I'm just going to click here. That puts a line on the histogram where the darks are. And I'm also going to put, I'm going to put in a sample point. So you hit the sample point here, and if you click, you can get everything's in balance right now because it's a grayscale image, and 33 is not a bad background. They're level. But another way you can do this is with the sampler selected, control and drag a sample point off of the ruler. And then you can go to the sample point viewer, turn it to 255, and then you can keep an idea of what's happening in that particular area. So again, let's go to curves. And again, we're thinking in terms of the mask here. So we want it to be fairly bright, but contrasty. So we'll put a bit of a contrast curve in here, and the background is now back down to 32-ish. 29, that's kind of a nice background level, so I'm just going to hit OK now. Now I'm going to go Control A to select all, Control C to copy, and then with this layer selected, we're going to hit the Add a Mask. We're just going to make it a white mask, keep it simple. And I'm going to go Control V with that mask active, and I can use this button to anchor that as a mask. So this is the image that I just copied. This is the view of the mask. Alt left click to turn the mask on and off. And this is what it's letting show through. So that's not really enough. So we can now further stretch the mask and we can further stretch the image. Now these stars don't go in until later. I'm also going to add just a black layer. Foreground color right now is black. I'm going to drop that behind there so we can see. Without that, with the mask, this thing is largely transparent, so you can't see what's there. Okay, it's time to think about colors. So there's two ways you can colorize. One of the options is to use the colorize dialog. And this is a hue, saturation, lightness dialog. So if you wanted this to be red, you could do red. If you wanted it to be in the greens, you could do greens. But we kind of want an orangey color. We can go higher saturation. Lightness, no lightness is black, high lightness is white. So this is kind of a tone setting thing. And neutral is right where it is, shows 0 on this scale. And yeah, so let's go with that and click OK. So that is kind of colorized. The other way you can, I'm going to go Control Z to undo that. The other way you can colorize it is just with curves. So we know we're going to want some red in here. So let's take the red up some. We know we don't really, I'm going to go to a histogram view here. We don't really want a lot of blue in here, so we'll take the blue out. And for the H signal, I think what we want is a nice yellowish color. So that kind of what involves you combining red and green goes yellow. So we might be able to do something like this. Maybe put a bit of a contrast into it. Maybe a bit more red, kind of get a yellowy gold thing going on there. And then we can go to the value, which affects all three. Now I can't drag this too much up because we're already consuming all of the dynamic range of maybe just a tiny, tiny little bit. But we can do this, which stretches luminance, not color, which changes the tone of it a little bit. I'm going to bring this up. Now remember, this is all behind a mask. If I disable the mask by control clicking on it, you can see we've kind of grossly overstretched this. But that's the point of the mask, is you can kind of do more creative things with it. Okay, kind of like that. If we do this, you start to lose the background. So I think let's just use this as a starting point. Okay, the oxygen layer. Same thing, we're going to go to curves. We want it to be fairly contrasty, so I've got the dynamic range to be able to do this. But obviously, I need to bring down the background. Okay, the background under this sampler is now at about 30. That's reasonable. And we'll just give it a little bit of punch there. This is the oxygen, so this is the one that we're going to colorize to blue. Okay, and now let's go Control A, Control C, add a white mask, and then I'll go Control V to paste it, and in GIMP for some reason you have to anchor it into so this is now the mask. Here's the mask, and here's the layer. Right now it's, if we turn this off, this is what we've got. So let's go this time and colorize with the colorize. And we want blue, we want high saturation. Now blue on the saturation, green is 1/3, blue is 2/3, and red is at both ends. So do we want some lightness in there? Not really, because that'll screw up the background. So I'm just going to go reset. Now we can play with curves later. All we're doing right now is getting color. In fact, let's turn off that mask. This is what we did to the channel, but behind the mask it looks a little bit different. So let's now go into curves and go to the RGB view. So this is what we have. So I think there's a fair bit of green in that, which produces cyan. I think I might want a little bit more green in there for a little bit more cyan. And probably don't want red in there because that just makes everything white. In fact, we can probably pull the reds right out of this one. And the blues, let's see what happens if we punch that up a little bit. Okay, let's call that a starting point. Now, how do you combine these? This one's on, they're kind of combining right now because of the masking, but not fully. So what I'm going to do is take this one and put it into addition mode. So now we're adding this blue signal to this orange signal. And we're not done with this. I mean, obviously the orange is vastly overpowering the blue, but we can do something else a little bit different with that later. Okay, let's start looking at the sulfur signal now. This is kind of the image we have, and I guess I'm going to work on that a little bit. This is basically the mask at this point. Okay, we're still quite bright, so this is the point that needs to come down. Okay, we're kind of 2930 here on that sample point. And we are not exceeding the available dynamic range. Nothing's clipped. Let's just go with that. And I'm going to go Control A, Control C. We're going to add a mask to it, go Control V, and then drop this image down into the mask. So if I alt-click on that, that's the mask. Now, we're not letting a whole lot through here, are we? So let's go back to RGB, colors, curves, bring in a little bit more here. And this will be our sulfur signal. So let's click OK on that. Colors, curves. Now we're going to colorize it a little bit. Now sulfur, I think, should be redder than the hydrogen. So in order to get that red, let's. I'm going to play with the green later. Let's take out some blue because it's just making magenta. In fact, blue probably has no place here, so we just got rid of it. Now green, kind of getting these rich golds and whatnot. But we do want, I think, more red than the color that we created for the hydrogen layer. So let's just click OK, and we're going to put this into addition mode. We'll turn on the blue, see how that blends, and we'll turn on this. Now this hydrogen, of course, has been overpowering. We could tone it down some. But what I'm going to do, let's just bring some green out of that. Make the, just going for kind of a nicer gold along the edges here in the darker areas. Okay, so these colors are synthetic. You can do whatever appeals to you, but now you can see how these three layers are interacting with this one added to this one and this one added to both. And if you go here, we're a little bit out of color balance. The red's a bit hot in the background, but that's easy to fix after we combine them. So there's something here now. Okay, so I'm just going to click OK on that. That's a pretty decent starting point. Now, this guy is a bit of a problem. It's too overpowering. It's just completely covering that blue. So I'm going to right click and go apply layer mask. Now there's no mask, but the mask effect is embedded in the main image. This main panel now has transparency. Now what we're going to do is take our oxygen mask. Let me just alt click on it so we can see it, and we'll turn everything else off. I'm going to go Control A and Control C, and I'll click on it again to turn it off. And we're going to take our hydrogen layer and add another mask. Just going to make it white, and I'm going to go Control V and stick it in there. Now this mask is inverted. Um, what we want to do is remove some hydrogen from the places where the oxygen is bright. And right now, it'll remove hydrogen from the places where the oxygen is not bright. So the simple solution to that is colors invert. Okay, so now this layer will have, where the oxygen is bright, will have its own color reduced. So let's see how those two interact. Okay, but that's too much. See, we just took too much out of it. So what we want to do with this mask is make it less powerful. So a good way to do that is to go like this, click OK, and then go curves, and go, this is from a fellow named Craig Calvert. He's the one that taught me that if you want more blue, you don't add blue, you subtract from the other colors. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So I'm going to just try this. We'll turn off the mask, and we'll turn on our oxygen. And you see now I can play with it in real time. And I'm going to add in the sulfur as well, which is bringing in some nice brighter contrast. So you see how we can affect the blue by playing with this mask? So I'm going to go OK. Now, okay, we have something here. So I think what we would want to do now, and again, we have our black background. If you wanted to add some offset, for instance, if the background of this image was too dark, you could add some offset to the background just by going with a curve and adding some gray to it like that. But we don't need to do that because we're actually high right now. We're 40, 35, 36. So definitely don't need any more offset. So now let's go new from visible. We'll just call this combo. And now we can start working with this image by itself. So we can, first of all, let's color balance and adjust that background a little bit. Red, we need to take red down a bit to 30. Let's just see where we end up here. I want to drop the green down to about 30. And the blue, actually this isn't the right way to do this. I'm going to do it the right way. Colors, curves. Let's just get rid of some of this excess right now here. And then we can work on the individual channels. So let's take red, we're at 25. I'm going to drop a sample. This is where we want to increase for the purposes affecting the background. Okay, 32. Let's take green. Okay, now that green is going to be a little bit overpowering. And blue. Hit OK. Now what we can do I guess we can do whatever we want to. Now, the reason we have such a straight cutoff here is that we had our black background, um, and then we had signal from these uh, channels. So there's offset here now, 32, 27, 30. That's pretty closely balanced background. But now a person could, say, work in the blues, might want to brighten them up a little bit, as long as you don't go past the end of the signal here. You can see the dynamic range here. Now we have a valley in the histogram here, which makes sense. There's a lot of dark pixels, and then all of a sudden there's a lot of colored pixels. But in the blue channel, we have it coming down. We have red and blue here forming magenta. So let's just try pulling out a bit of blue in the darker areas. So I'm watching the histogram. I'm trying to eliminate the red and blue together, make magenta. So I think we could call that a minor but valid adjustment. Let's look at green. Now here we can change the, well, let's anchor the darks. But then you can change the character of this thing by messing with the greens. But again, I kind of like to look at the histogram. Probably don't want them to overpower the reds, but we've got a nice little curve going there that follows along with the reds. And then in the red channel, same thing, I'll anchor it. You could add a bit of red like so, or you could put in a bit of contrasting. But I think if anything, we want more red at the background. Just bring in that richness. Okay, and then the last thing is to put our star layer on top. I'm going to put that into addition mode and turn it on. Okay, now that's a bit overpowering. Might as well show you in GIMP. Okay, color balance is not bad, bit high on the reds. Let's just go to curves, pull down the reds just a smidge. Now we got a bit of magenta right out here, which again is red and blue interacting. So let's just pull down the reds at the top and pull down the blues at the top. Just try to get rid of that magenta. Red, green, and we need a bit more blue further there. Just make it nice and even, and we could call this star field color balance now. And there is some color there. Now in GIMP, we have something called under distorts, value propagate. And then you change it from more white, which makes bigger stars, to more black. And then the propagation rate can affect um, very easily how much the stars are reduced. But the trouble is with that, if you kind of do something that's nice for the big stars, it makes a lot of the small ones disappear. So what I prefer to do, again, is just a curve. If you pull down like this, kind of affects the big stars, but then you can, if you want a rich star field, you can bring in the smaller ones again by dragging down this end of the curve. But a curve like this is kind of balanced and nice. So I think this version of this image is done. But again, you can go back. I'm going to turn off the combo. You can go back and change things if you want. Let's go colors, colorize. Now that's going to set it right back to default values. So you're going to want to start over. Uh, No, I kind of like it better without that. But anyways, this is colorized SHO. And of course, you get your base together with the layers and then do a new from visible. And then you can do editing to suit at that point. And it's for so little data, kind of a striking result. I could easily boost the blues. I could easily do almost anything with this. So that is my version of colorized SHO in GIMP. Now the PixInsight version, when you apply a mask and colorize, it leaves the dark uncolored areas of the background, I believe, intact. So you end up with something other than a black background. This system has a bit of an issue in that you pretty much cut out your background. So you need to put in a black background layer, and then you can add offset to that if you wish, or even in on the combo layer if you wanted to go colors, curves, you could add in or reduce some offset. I'm just going to try a bit of a contrasting curve here, though. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Whatever a person likes, it's personal taste after that. Okay, I'm going to pause this and yeah. Okay, there's one other thing I'd like to introduce in this kind of workflow that can be kind of fun and you never know what'll happen. But I whipped together a kind of a SHO with pixelmath from the same Starless subs. Didn't do any work on it, but this is the raw image. Now what happens, so this is kind of where we were at, but what happens if you take this and turn it into and multiply them together? You could do that in pixelmath too, just by using the multiply function, but we can do it here very easily too. Now that's kind of cool. When every scale of pixel that's not blown out when multiplied by something will get smaller, so it gets a lot darker, but we can play with the opacity here, and we can go new from visible. So now we have a new layer we're working on, and then we can just kind of give it another stretch to bring it back. So let's first of all bring up, so we're using most of the dynamic range. Actually, let's try a bit of a reverse contrast on this. Oh, I kind of like the vibrancy of it. And let's see what our sample point's doing. A bit high still. Okay, so let's see what that did. That's where we are. That's where we are after the multiplication. So it took away some of the luminance, but it never hurts to try stuff like that and see what it does to the colors. I think I'm just going to delete those two layers now, but I wanted to say that you could enhance an SHO image by multiplying it with an HOO image, and you never know what you're going to get. It can be kind of fun. Okay, I think we'll call that done now. Colorized SHO. I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you again.